Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a playthrough of The Ghost of Lion Castle. This is an old school Dungeons and Dragons adventure back from the 1980s, and it's specifically a solo adventure, which is why I'm going to be going through it today. Now, I talked a little bit about The Ghost of Lion Castle in my most recent podcast, so if you haven't checked that out, check it out, paperdicegames.com. But I'll go over a little bit about The Ghost of Lion Castle right now. Here's the cover. And The Ghost of Lion Castle, like I said, is a solo Dungeons and Dragons adventure from the 80s. And in my opinion, it's quite unique because it is very similar to a roguelike game, and those are, I don't know, relatively popular right now, but this is like the OG roguelike. Basically, in The Ghost of Lion Castle, you are a low-level wizard, and you are going to strike out and adventure through the Ghost of Lion Castle and try and find treasure and magical spells and things like that, and you're gonna die. And you're going to die a lot, and the game is set up so that you can roll up another character and continue playing. In fact, it's specifically set up to die a lot because there's something in the game called a magic journal that travels along with your character as they go through the Ghost of Lion Castle, or I guess Lion Castle. I'm not sure if there's a ghost yet. And if your character dies, that magical journal reappears back at the local inn, where your next character will find it, read the secrets of the castle, and be a little bit better prepared the next time that your next character goes through the castle. So, I have played 2 different sessions of the Ghost of Lion Castle so far, and each session ended poorly. So, my first character's name was Morwen, alright, and Morwen managed to get into the castle, took a fair amount of damage from a trap immediately going into the castle, and then died from a lion. All right, here's Morwen's character sheet. My next character was Zofira. Zofira, using Morwen's knowledge of the castle, was able to get their way into the castle, the tail part specifically, without getting injured from the trap, and then they died from a tiger. So there's a lot of dangerous items in the castle here. Here's Zofira's character sheet. And today I have Kamel, who is going to be going through the castle. Now, Kamel, I'll give you a quick look at the character sheet here. But Kamel is a gnome. So this is my first attempt with a gnome going through the castle. And specifically, Kamel is a gnome illusionist. And so, as an illusionist, Kamel is going to have an extra spell, specifically an illusion that is going to help get through the castle. Going over Kamel's character sheet here, 7th strength, 9 dexterity, 9 constitution, so nothing crazy there. 14 intelligence, 7 wisdom, and 8 charisma. So not overall a very well-ruled character, but we're going to see how Kamel does in just a moment here. Kamel is rocking a sling and some sling bullets as their main weapon, as well as a hooded lantern and oil to have some light as they get into the castle. Their spells are Read Magic, Burning Hands, which is good, Featherfall, Find Familiar, so Kamel does have a familiar, Odric the Owl, and Phantasmal Force, which may be important going on, we'll see. And Kamel, unfortunately, as a level 1 advanced Dungeons and Dragons character, has 1 spell per day and a total of 2 hit points. So Kamel's going to do the best they can to stay out of danger, stay away from danger, so that they do not end up anywhere targeted by an enemy. And then here I have the magic journal. It is not very long because my first 2 characters did not do very well, but I'm going to continue adding to it as Kamel goes through the castle here. So I'm going to open up the module, and I am going to start reading a little bit of the actual adventure. Now, I do want to pause here. If this is something that you're interested in, you're going to run into spoilers because I'm going to be playing through this adventure. So if you are a person who may want to run this in the future and, you know, maybe don't want to have this spoiled, I would suggest pausing the video, or if you're watching the stream, taking a break. And this will be up on YouTube later if you're watching the stream, so you'll be able to check it out later. But I do want to give that disclaimer as we go through this. Now, there is a little bit of a story to start out the adventure. It gives you a little bit of a backstory of being in an inn, having people tell you about this castle in Sargon, this ancient wizard. I'm going to skip a fair amount of that, the prose there, and just kind of start where the adventure starts so Kamel can get moving. So Kamel decides that they are going to work their way towards the castle. So in the morning, you pack for your journey, study your spellbook, and prepare your weapon. You pack 3 weeks' worth of rations for the long quest. Your friends accompany you to the edge of Sardal, shake your hand, and wish you luck. I almost forgot to tell you, one of your friends says. Legends say that entering the castle at night is very unwise. Rest before you enter, and approach in the light of dawn. You thank your friend, and you turn to leave. You cross the river by ferry and turn east to walk along the river. The great grassland of the Ethengar Khanate stretches out ahead of you. 6 days pass. You have seen few animals since you left Sarsdal, and you have talked to no one. You turn north away from the riverbank and begin crossing the flat grassland. As the sun begins to set on the 8th day, a slight gray mound appears on the north horizon. The huge head of a stone beast pokes above the waving grass. Lion Castle stands ahead, only 1 day away. Pause for a drink here. Dawn comes quickly, and you set out toward the castle. The time seems to drag. Finally, in the late afternoon, you come upon a slight rise in the land. All of Lion Castle stands majestically before you. A 10-foot-high outer curtain wall stretches for 255 feet at the base of the castle. 20-foot-high towers rise from the wall, which is rimmed by a dry moat. Lion Castle itself rests on a 10-foot-high mound within the outer curtain wall. The lion's head rises 66 feet from the mound. Its great roaring mouth faces west. Subtract 9 days' worth of your rations from your character sheet. So Kamel is actually, knowing that this was basically a 10-day journey to the castle, Kamel has a total of 20 meals. And so that brings us Kamel down to 11. Now, one of the problems with Kamel as a character is that Kamel's strength is really poor, which means that Kamel's max capacity weight is also really low. So I had to decide between a lantern and meals and sling bullets. And so I found a balance that I think will work. But if Kamel does do well and survives for a few days, Kamel is going to find themselves running out of food, perhaps. I guess we'll see. So at this point, I have a choice to either circle to the west, circle to the east, or decide to rest here. Now, my previous characters and in the Magic Journal, I have notes that basically say that resting here is fine. There are orcs that potentially roam the area, but if they rest here, Kamel should be able to enter the tail end of the lion here and move their way inside, avoiding the traps and, maybe hopefully avoiding any lions or anything like that that get inside there. So Kamel's going to go ahead and take a rest here for the night. So I'm going to go to the next entry here, which says, follow the steps in entry R15. At dawn the next day, you wake to continue your request. So R15 is a rules reference that basically says, at the end of a day, you can heal and rest if you want. It gives you a list of 4 different things to do. You subtract 1 day's rations from your character, which I will do, so I'm down to 10 meals. It asks you to roll a 1d6, and on the result of a 1, you're going to have a random encounter, and that's a 5, so I am just fine there. Add 1 hit point to up to your max health, and then you can study your spellbook and regain any spells lost so far during the adventure. None of that really applies here. So I'm going to continue on to the next morning. So at this point, I am waking up. I'm on the north side of the castle here, and I'm going to move towards the tail, which in the adventure is called the postern gatehouse. Now, Kamel knows that there's a trap here, and Zafira, my previous character, had found a way through the trap without getting injured. So we're going to follow that same path and see what happens here. So we're going to go through the postern gatehouse, go to the next entry, and it says, you are standing before the postern gatehouse. 2 sets of thick wooden doors stand open inside the gatehouse. Beyond the doors, a long tunnel leads into darkness. If you have the proper spells or magic items, you may go through the gatehouse by either becoming invisible, turning gaseous, or walking visibly. And then, of course, you can find another way into the castle. So we're going to walk visibly, which brings us to the next area. As Kamel walks visibly into the tail, Kamel sees murder holes pierce the ceiling between two sets of wooden doors in this gatehouse. So Kamel has a choice to sneak under the holes, run under the holes, or retreat. And Zafira, one of the previous characters, found out that if you just run underneath them, you'll be just fine. So Kamel's going to do the same. She's going to run underneath the holes and move on to the next one. So the second set of wooden doors, which is right here, slam shut behind you. You cannot open the doors. You cannot levitate, turn gaseous, become invisible, or use rope of climbing here. You're in a dark tunnel. Read entry L5. Now, as I'm turning to entry L5, I do want to talk about how I'm playing this game. Now, I am planning on, and have been, running about one character a month. And the reason I'm doing about one character a month is because my memory of my progress so far in the castle disappears pretty quickly over that month time. And so that way I'm forced to rely on the entries in the magic journal rather than thinking back and remembering what my characters had previously done. And that matches a little bit more the flavor of the story, and so that's a little bit of a way for me to basically enjoy the goal of trying to see how far I can get in here, while avoiding the metagame aspect of the fact that I'm playing the same game over and over. So I'm going to make an entry here for Kamel in the magic journal, because this I completely forgot, that the second set of doors slam shut after entry. Alright, I'm also going to use an 8-sided to kind of show where Kamel is on the map here. I think that will be helpful. Right there. Alright, moving on to entry L5, as Kamel enters the tail of the lion, which is actually a castle. You are in the Lion's Tail Tunnel. This dark 5-foot wide stone tunnel rises 10 feet into the darkness. The tunnel runs for 55 feet and then opens into a semicircular chamber. The chamber is 15 feet in diameter. A raised portcullis, and I'm not sure if that's how you say it, so bear with me. A raised portcullis rests above the west wall of the chamber. A dark hallway leads west beyond the portcullis. You encounter a wandering monster in the tunnel. That's also something I've forgotten, so maybe my next character will not be coming this way. Yeah, that's not an option. I'm just going to encounter a wandering monster. If you have no light source, follow the guidelines in entry R13, which I do not have to worry about. I do have a hood and lantern. To determine what type of monster is in the tunnel, follow these steps in entry R14. If you defeat the monster or if you escape during combat, you may go through the portcullis. Read entry RL20 if that happens, and then if the monster defeats you, read entry C42. So, there's a few things it's telling me to do here. First of all, I'm going to mark the page so I don't have to flip back and forth. I encounter a wandering monster here, which means I need to go to the wandering monster section. And actually, I don't actually need to read that. All it's going to tell me is to roll on the wandering monster table, which actually is not right in front of me. It's back in here. So I'm going to actually open up to the right page. And there we go. Wandering monsters. There are potentially 25 different wandering monsters. I'm not even sure how to roll for that. Maybe I should reread the wandering monsters section. Wandering monsters. Okay, it's by level. If you're exploring castle level 1, you roll a 1d12 and add 6 to your die roll. Alright, there we go. So, 1d12 plus 6. That is a, well, these dice are tough to see. 6 plus 6 is 12. Kamel encounters a pit viper. Well, I think that's better than a lion or a tiger, which is what met my last two characters here. Alright, so a pit viper, armor class 6, 9 health. It has a poison bite. That's no good. But only 1 bite, 1 attack, and it is relatively slow. And the other thing I'm looking for here is going to be its I think I'm just gonna, I can't remember how to do that. So a big part of wandering monsters or any combat, especially in this solo system, is morale for the monsters, for the enemies. And if I remember correctly, I'm rolling 2d6 for the morale, and there it is, ML. Okay. So if it's a 7 or more, then the monster runs away. I'm going to double check that here. That looks right, looking at these other monsters. All right, so there's the Pit Viper. This module does come with specific combat rules for solo play. It's pretty much what you would expect. You're first going to roll for initiative, and then you're going to go through a basic attack cycle. So I'm going to roll for initiative. Whoever gets the higher initiative is going to attack first, and then the next party is going to attack, and it's just going to go back and forth like that over and over and over. So relatively easily here. Now in the rules it says 1d6. I'm just going to use dexterity because that is a little bit, I think, of a better way to handle this, and I mean, that's how it's done in 5th edition. So we're going to go ahead and roll, although, yeah, my dexterity is okay. A Pit Viper is HD2, so we'll add 2 for the Pit Viper. So Kamel's roll for initiative, 17, nice. And the Pit Viper's roll, 5, so Kamel will be going first. So Kamel walks in to the tail here. We'll say Kamel's made her way over to kind of the tail to this open room before the portcullis, and it's actually there. You can't really read this, it's a little too far away, but it's actually there. Let me see if I can pull the camera in a little bit closer. It's actually there that the... Now that camera movement didn't really help. That's okay. It's there that the other 2 bodies are. And the other 2 bodies are just kind of sitting there. So this would be a good victory for Kamel, because not only would they survive the first encounter, which the other two characters did not, but secondly, there's 2 bodies there with gold, which doesn't really matter as much, but other resources if Kamel needs it. So Kamel sees a Pit Viper, whoopsies, and Kamel is going to try and figure out what to do. Now, Kamel does have an advantage with a familiar, but if a familiar dies, that's really, really bad for Kamel. Kamel has Burning Hands with only 1 spell per day, though. That may be a little bit quick to run it. Use it. Kamel also has a Sling, a Hooded Lantern. Here's what I think I'm going to do. Knowing Kamel knows for sure that this is the same exact room that the other 2 characters have died in because of the magic journal. So I think Kamel is not going to pull any punches, and Kamel is just going to straight up use Burning Hands, her most powerful spell, and just try and get rid of the Pit Viper right away. Kamel's also going to send an Odric the Owl first to see if it can maybe get some initial damage here. So Odric the Owl is going to go in and make a quick attack here, and that's a miss with a 3. So Odric the Owl misses in the attack on the Pit Viper, and now Kamel is going to cast Burning Hands against the Pit Viper. Now the way Burning Hands works is it's going to deal 1d3 plus 2 damage, and the Pit Viper has a chance to save versus half. These wandering monsters have a save value that is a it's a code. So it says save F1, and that refers to another table, which I have no idea where that table is. So the way I'm going to have this work, and I would love for someone in the comments to tell me how this works, if you do know how, because I can't remember. But the way I'm going to have this work is I'm just going to use the hit dice for the Pit Viper and add that to the overall roll of d20, and if it's a 10 or higher, the Pit Viper is going to save. And it's a 10 or higher, so the Pit Viper saves against the attack. We got the d6 damage coming, or the d3 plus 2, so that is going to be 2 plus 2 is 4 minus at half, because the Pit Viper saved, which means the Pit Viper is now down to 7 health. Now this is kind of a dangerous place for Kamel, because the Pit Viper is still very much alive. However, the Pit Viper does have to roll for morale, and so the morale for the Pit Viper is 7. If the roll here is 7 or greater, the Pit Viper is just going to flee, and Kamel is going to survive the first encounter. And it's a roll of 7 or greater, and Kamel survives the first encounter. All right. So at this point, there is no more Pit Viper, and Kamel has survived. I do believe that gives Kamel 25 experience, which is excellent. Let me get my pencil out. And Kamel is well on their way to becoming the best character, attempting to work their way through the Ghost of Lion Castle. So if you defeat the monster, read entry L20. So I'm going to move my way over to L20. L20. The portcullis falls as you pass under it. Whoa. Okay, so we're going to pause right there. I did not actually mean to go underneath the portcullis yet because my map is tough to see, but both bodies are on this side of the portcullis. And if Kamel passes through the portcullis, they're going to get to this hallway here, and I don't want that to occur yet. So I'm going to take a look at these bodies first, fully understanding that, yes, Kamel at some point will pass underneath the portcullis. So let's take a look at Morwen. Morwen has a quarterstaff, a knife, 16 gold, belt pouch, robe, 10 days food. Okay, so I think Kamel is going to grab a few days food. So 3 more days food and a torch. And I'm going to pretend that the food is hardtack or something like that. So the food's going to keep well enough. And that way I don't have to worry as much about the idea of rotting or spoiled food. They can just be resources that Kamel and future characters can find. I'm also going to make an entry here in the magic journal. And this entry is just going to say that there are 2 bodies. In the main room, in front of the portcullis. And a quick note that they have resources. Food, weapons, torches. And so what that does is for the next character that I send into the castle, that basically tells me that I have, you know, better planning options. I don't necessarily need to carry everything that I need into the castle because, hey, there's some food there's some weapons already, and so it's possible to kind of use that to my advantage. Now, I quick want to read here. Okay. There is none of the other characters have gotten past the portcullis, so there is no additional information about this. So at this point, had I not known that portcullis was going to fall, Kamel would have gone underneath it, and now we're going to read the entry. The portcullis falls as you pass under it. Make a saving throw versus wands. If your saving throw succeeds, you take no damage. If your saving throw fails, you take 1d4 damage. You may jump forward as it falls or jump backward. Okay, so basically Kamel sees the portcullis is falling. It's on its way down, and Kamel has a choice to try and go forward, try and go backward. No matter what, they're going to be making a saving throw versus wands. There is a table here in the kind of the reference area on the back cover that expands out of the actual module, and it says that, or it has, the table has a saving throw. So I look at magic wand saving throw. I am a magic user, levels 1 to 3, and the saving throw is a 14 or higher. That's no good. So 14 or higher. However, Kamel does have a familiar, and the familiar Odric the Owl does give Kamel +1 to all surprise rolls for the mage. So basically, as this portcullis is about to come down, Kamel sends out a warning, or Odric sends out a warning call to Kamel, and Kamel is going to try and avoid the portcullis. Now this is a big roll, because this could end Kamel right here. Kamel has 2 health, only 2 health, and this is going to be 1d4 damage, so this could be very, very bad for Kamel. So I need at least a 13 on the roll to get past the portcullis. Let's find out what happens. Ooh, that's no good. That is an 8. All right, moment of truth here. Is this going to end Kamel's journey? Now, the only way Kamel survives is if I roll a 1 on this 1d4. And I rolled a 2. So here ends Kamel's journey. Crushed by Portcullis. Now, this is not all bad. Some good came of this. R.I.P. Kamel, by the way. Number 1, Kamel got the furthest any character has ever gotten. All right. Number 2, Kamel added some important entries into the Magic Journal. And number 3, this is a little morbid, but Kamel's body is pinned in the Portcullis. All right. And so what that means is, actually, I'll have to actually look. I'm gonna, I'll have to figure out how to do this, because I wonder if traps reset. Yeah, I've been playing it, the traps reset, because the outer doors have reset. So basically this is going to be a hint for my next character that, hey, there's a body here that looks like it was crushed as the Portcullis trap resets. And so that's going to give my next character an understanding of, you know, what's going on and how to avoid getting crushed in the future. So, Kamel. Sorry, Kamel. It's over. Now, this has been that was a short adventure. It's been, what, like 25 minutes so far. I was expecting a quick death, so I do have one more character rolled up. And we'll see how this character does. This is Tall Arch, a human mage. And Tall Arch is now going to attempt to go into Lion Castle and see how far they can get. Tall Arch has 9 strength, so better than Kamel, which basically means that Tall Arch is going to be able to carry more things, and that is always a good thing when you're trying to, you know, pack for the entire journey. 7 dexterity, which isn't good. 5 constitution, which is really, really bad. And I'll tell you in a second. 16 intelligence, which is great. 12 wisdom, which is solid, and 11 charisma. Now, with that 16 intelligence for Tall Arch comes 5 different languages. So Tall Arch knows Common, Fire Giant, Orcish, Gold Dragon, and Ogrish, which I assume is Ogre. Tall Arch has some proficiencies, and most of them revolve around wood stuff. So Forester, Woodworking, Leather Worker, Trapper, and a Limner or Painter, which I think in the book said something about making maps or making art, that type of thing. Here is the tough part for Tall Arch. Tall Arch has 10 armor class, because wizards aren't going to wear armor, and has a single health. Now, you remember when I said that Tall Arch has 5 constitution? That's a problem, because when you have 5 constitution, you're going to subtract 1 from any of the health rolls you get when you start out a character or level up, and that's going to really limit your character's ability to have a good starting health total. So basically, if Tall Arch gets hit, Tall Arch is done for. Tall Arch has 4 spells to start. Read Magic, like all wizards have to start. Tall Arch has Friends, and I'm excited about this because the opportunity to get a kind of a passive follower could be very, very useful in this particular adventure. Dancing Lights and Erase. So I actually need to go through the player's handbook and double check these quick, because I have not played with these spells recently. So I'll be reading these out loud just because we're all on the same page. So Read Magic is relatively self-explanatory. That basically is you can read magical writings, magical script, runes, that type of thing. The next one is Dancing Lights, and I'll read a quick version here. So when Dancing Lights is cast, the wizard creates at their option from 1 to 4 lights that resemble either torches or lanterns, and cast that amount of light, glowing spheres of light, or one faintly glowing, vaguely human-like shape, somewhat similar to that of a creature from the elemental plane of fire. The dancing lights move as the spellcaster desires, forward or back, straight or turning corners without concentration upon such movement by the wizard. The spell cannot be used to cause blindness, and it winks out if the range or duration is exceeded. Okay, so that's kind of like a distraction spell, and we'll see if I use it. I'm not too excited about that. The other two then are Friends and Erase. I'll read Friends first here. Friends spell causes the wizard to temporarily gain 2d4 points of charisma. Intelligent creatures within the area of effect at the time the spell is cast must make immediate reaction checks based on the character's new charisma, and those with favorable reactions tend to be impressed with the spellcaster and make an effort to be friends and help them, as appropriate to the situation. So this could mean that officious bureaucrats might decide to become helpful, surly gate guards might wax informative, attacking orcs might spare the caster's life, taking them captive instead. But when the spell wears off, the creatures realize they have been influenced and their reactions are determined by the DM. Okay, so that's not quite as useful as I was hoping, but we'll see if it comes into play. And the last one is Erase. Here, the Erase spell removes writings of either magical or mundane nature from a scroll or from 1 or 2 pages of parchment or similar surfaces. Okay, so that basically undoes anything that you could read through Read Magic. Okay. Not great. Alright, gonna be honest, I'm not super confident in Tall Arch's ability to do much here. No real offensive spells. I mean, Dancing Lights is potentially a distraction, and I suppose that's a good thing. Friends is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card for intelligent beings, but only for a certain amount of time. And Read Magic and Erase are real pedantic in nature, so yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to go. The Tall Arch has, let's see, a backpack, clothes, 20 meals, and I have not gathered other items yet. But given what I know now from Kamel's journey, actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about this, I think Tall Arch is going to try a different entrance to the castle. I'm not, like I said, I'm not convinced Tall Arch is going to survive much, if any, combat. And I know now, because it's in the Magic Journal, that if Tall Arch is able to make it to that room with the portcullis, where now there's 3 bodies, there's for sure going to be a wandering monster encounter. And I think that it makes more sense for Tall Arch, knowing that Tall Arch is kind of a weak mage, to avoid combat and attempt to enter the castle in a different area. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just writing down a quick note. Now that I've said portcullis about 12 times, I'm curious if that's actually how to say it. I'll have to look that up after this. Okay, so Tall Arch is going to, let's see here, 7 dexterity. That's not that good either. I think Tall Arch is going to go with a short bow. That's 30 gold. Torches. And 20 arrows. And that's going to come down to about 2 gold if I'm doing my math right. Normally I'd look this stuff up, but seeing that I am recording and streaming, I don't want to bore you with a lot of the details of this. All right. So, I'm ready to go with Tall Arch. Poor Tall Arch. I have no confidence in Tall Arch. Let me get my Magic Journal ready. Alright, and I'm going to start back at the beginning of the module and see how I do. Now, I am going to start back from the same entry that I read before, and the reason why I'm going to do that, this is something I do when I solo game. A few years ago, when I started solo gaming, solo role-playing specifically, I kind of got in this funk, in this rut, where I would attempt something like this, where I'd send a character into a situation, things wouldn't go well, and then I'd, roll up a new character and have them attempt something similar. But what I realized was I was going really fast, and I was really, really pushing to try and accomplish the goal that I wanted my characters to accomplish, which is great. That's why you game. You want to have those fun moments and do those fun things. The problem is that I realized at some point I was working so fast that I was really just, it was an exercise in dice rolling, and I was just running characters through a grinder mill until I rolled the right sequence of dice rolls to get me through, and I kind of lost all sense of the role-playing part of the game, and it just became a game of dice rolling. And so one of the things that I do when I solo roleplay now is I really slow down, and I really try to, even if, like in this case, I'm going through the same beginning part of the story, I still go through it all, even though I know it's going to happen, even though I've already read it. And it helps me really experience the story and kind of do the role-playing part of it and have fun with it, rather than just, again, make it more along the lines of a series of dice rolls and seeing if I can get the right combination at the right time. So I am going to go through the beginning, like I said, but I just enjoy it better that way, and I enjoy the whole experience better that way. So, Tall Arch. Tall Arch. I named Tall Arch because I figure he is tall. So that was my thought process there. In the morning, you pack for your journey. Study your spellbook and prepare your weapon. You pack 3 weeks' worth rations for the long quest. Your friends accompany you to the edge of Sarsdell, shake your hand, and wish you luck. I almost forgot to tell you, one of your friends says. Legends say that entering the castle at night is very unwise. Rest before you enter and approach in the light of dawn. You thank your friend and leave. You cross the river by ferry and turn east to walk along the river. The great grassland of the Ethengar Kennet stretches out ahead of you. 6 days pass. You have seen few animals since you left Sarsdell, and you have talked to no one. You turn north away from the riverbank and begin crossing the flat grasslands. As the sun begins to set on the 8th day, a slight gray mound appears on the north horizon. The head of a huge stone beast pokes above the waving grass. Lion Castle stands ahead, only 1 day away. Dawn comes quickly, and you set out toward the castle. The time seems to drag. Finally, in late afternoon, you come upon a slight rise in the land. All of Lion Castle stands majestically before you. A 10-foot-high outer curtain wall stretches for 255 feet to the base of the castle. And that's a fun detail that I love. That's so typical of these old-school modules, is you have this really elegant prose, and then all of a sudden there's this jarring, very, very specific, detailed information with like height and length. That I just find it funny. 20 feet high towers rise from the wall, which is rimmed by a dry moat. Lion Castle itself rests on a 10-foot-high mound within the outer curtain wall. The lion's head rises 66 feet from the mound. Its great roaring mouth faces west. Subtract 9 days' worth of rations from your character sheet. All right, so I'll do that again. So again, Tall Arch has packed 20 meals and is now down to 11, and shortly will be down to 10. And that's pretty typical of all the characters I've tried so far, is I've been packing 20 meals. It's interesting because none of them have lasted past 10, so none of them have even gotten single digits worth of meals. But I'm relatively optimistic. I may consider that changing soon, though, because it does take a lot of their max weight, which for some characters, not necessarily Tall Arch here with 9 strength, but for some characters like Kamal, the strength and max weight that they could carry was a challenging thing for me to figure out what I could balance and bring along the trip. So Tall Arch has a choice here to circle to the west, to the east, or to stride to rest here on the north. And so I'm looking at the map here. That would mean Tall Arch is right here, all right, kind of around the top. And if I circle around to the west or the east, it doesn't look like there's any entrances there on either side. But to the south, it looks like there's an entrance here, if I'm not mistaken. There's also one here to the north, but I think Tall Arch is just going to try and avoid any amount of the other characters also approach from the north. So I think Tall Arch is kind of a contrarian and sees, 3 dead characters in the magic journal, says, oh, they all followed the same path, they all went to the north. Well, I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go to the south and try my luck there. So I think Tall Arch is going to work their way to the south, and they're going to go along the west side just to avoid that same tail that the other characters went through. So go to the west, C5. The west wall of the outer curtain stretches before you. The lion's head rises above the wall. The eyes of the great cat flicker as roars and growls come out of its toothy maw. A narrow path runs around the south side of the lion's body and leads into a dark opening in its chest. Oh, look at that. I did not realize that there is just an open entryway here. Now So two things happened here. I learned that the lion actually roars as you cross across its front end, and there is a front entrance. Now, Tall Arch, this is a tough choice. I'm not sure where to go here because I could continue to the south and try and hit up this entrance, but this open entrance is appealing. There is maybe another portcullis in the map here, which Tall Arch probably wouldn't know that if it's trapped, but maybe would like the main entrance through the front. You know what? I think I'm going to go with it. Nope, I'm going to go to the south. I'm going to stick with the regular plan. So I'm going to go to the south. So from here, Tall Arch is going to head to the south, which is C4. So the south wall of the outer curtain stretches before you. There appear to be no openings in the wall. So I'm going to decide to rest here. And at this point, that means that I'll be starting the next day in the morning. I will remove another meal from my rations. Tall Arch is down to 10. And I roll for a wandering monster. If you recall from the rules when I read them earlier, I roll a 1d6. If it is a 1, a wandering encounter incurs. It's a 3. So Tall Arch continues on with no wandering encounters. Ooh, and I didn't realize this. Okay. So looking at the entry here for C4, it looks like this is not actually an entrance. It looks like that is just a stairs going downwards, and that this is maybe like a window or something. So I don't actually think that's an entry point. That's good to know. So Tall Arch is going to go back here to the west side and just kind of enter in the main area. So Tall Arch heads back to the west. And again, the lion's head rises above the wall, and the eyes of the great cat flicker as roars and growls come from its toothy maw. A narrow path runs around the south side of the lion's body and leads into a dark opening in the chest. So let's see here. So I've actually never realized this. I'm reading through these entries, and the only way you can enter the castle is if you rest. So I guess that friend that gave me that warning that, oh, you should only enter the castle after a rest, that's like literally the only way to enter the castle is after a rest. So I'm back on C6 here and trying to figure out how I can come in. The outer gatehouse, I think, is where I'm looking at right now, but I need to confirm on the map here. Oh, I suppose there's also a west wall. Oh, okay, I'll just read the ways you can get in. So you can enter over the north wall. You can enter over the west wall. You can enter through the postern gatehouse, or you can enter through the outer gatehouse. And I believe what I'm looking at is the outer gatehouse, but I do need to double check that. So there we go. Oh. No. I see. I'm mistaken. There's actually a wall around the lion. That's okay. So I will go here. I'll show you my mistake. Actually, it's maybe better on the big camera. So there's actually a wall around the lion, and I've been coming in through here. So all my other characters did everything correctly. That's kind of a weird place to come into the castle. This looks like the outer gatehouse. So that's the way to get into the walls. And then what's my character's name? Tall Arch is going to try and do is circle around to the very front of the lion here. Okay, so the outer gatehouse is where I'm going to enter. I'll have to remember that for next time. I had not realized that the map I photocopied did not have the outer walls in it. So I'll enter through the outer gatehouse, go to C24, and go from there. Now this is new ground for Tall Arch, for any of my characters. So I'm hoping for the best here to get a little bit more information about this castle. You are standing before the outer gatehouse. A raised portcullis rests over the gatehouse opening. Beyond the portcullis, two sets of thick wooden doors stand open. A path winds inward from the gatehouse and leads through patches of undergrowth toward the back of Lion Castle. If you have the proper spells or magic items, you may go through the gatehouse by becoming invisible, turning gaseous, or walking visibly. So at this point, Tall Arch is going to walk visibly, but Tall Arch has also read the magic journal and recognizes traps, and so Tall Arch is going to run, if given the opportunity, to try and avoid traps here. So walking visibly is C26. Oh my gosh. The portcullis falls as you pass under it. Make a saving throw versus wands. If your saving throw succeeds, you take no damage. If your saving throw fails, you take 1d4 points of damage. You may jump forward as the portcullis falls, or you may jump backward. Okay. That is really annoying. That's good to know. So there is a portcullis here, and hopefully Tall Arch avoids it, but we'll see. So the first thing to do is pull up the saving throw table, which I'm pretty sure is a 14. Let's take a look here. Magic Wands, 14. Yep. So Tall Arch needs a 14 or higher, or else Tall Arch is going to get pinned down by this portcullis, and that will be it for Tall Arch. Let's find out. And that's, yeah, that's that. So that is a 6. Tall Arch is no more. I'm going to record this. And Tall Arch is going onto the stack of dead characters. And poor Tall Arch didn't even have a chance to write in the magic journal. All right. So that ends the 2 characters I had rolled up for today. Neither of them did, well, Camille did the best out of any character I've had so far. Tall Arch wasn't really set up for success. Now, one of the things I have considered, because this module does come with pre-rolled characters, and most of the pre-rolled characters are level 3 or level 2. Actually, well, I shouldn't say most, but there are level 3 and level 2 characters here, and I think that when you consider the fact that 2 of my characters have now died from traps, and 2 of my characters have died from forced encounters, that having a wizard or mage or elf or something like that coming up, not at level 1, maybe at level 2 or level 3, which potentially could give them up to, 12 hit points, likely closer to 8 or something. But if that were to occur, a portcullis dropping isn't going to kill them outright. And so after losing 4 characters in pretty quick fashion, I may consider giving myself the opportunity to excuse me, roll up a higher level character in the future, and maybe it might give me a chance to have one of my characters survive a little bit longer. I'm kind of a purist though, so I do like the idea of a level 1 character making their way through this, but we'll see. It's just completely possible that this isn't going to, it might just not work. I also want to look at some of these first levels. Yeah, some of the first level characters, each of them actually has a fair amount of magical items. So what I think I'm going to do before I play my next one is I'm going to go in and look a little bit, here they are, I'm going to look a little bit at creating these characters and see how I can do it in a way that sets them up for a little bit more success, because I'm not necessarily worried about having characters die. A lot of the joy of doing this type of thing for me is creating the characters and just kind of exploring the game and seeing how far I get. I've been doing this for almost an hour now, and yeah, they died right away, but it's been fun. So I'm not worried about the fact that they died right away, but I do want the difficulty level, if you can look at it this way, not to be on hard mode. When I'm at the point in my life where when I play games, computer games specifically with difficulty modes, I'm going to put it on normal or easy, because I don't have the time or the energy to spend learning the system to a high degree. So I think I'll go back and maybe I'll make up a list of maybe magical items or something like that, and make sure every single one of my characters starts with maybe 1 or 2, depending on how those are going, and at least that way it gives them a little bit of a chance to kind of get started. You also see here that the hit points for these first level characters are quite high, which I'm when I make characters, first of all, I follow the rules to the best of my ability. I certainly am no expert, but I go along. I'm very much a simulationist. You know, I like to roll the attributes in order. I like to, if my health roll is a 1, I just have a character with 1 health, like Tall Arch was, and that's kind of I enjoy the simulation aspect of role-playing games in that way. And so I think I'm going to stick with doing it that way. But yeah, I think the next step is just to see if I can maybe have 1 random magic item per character to give them a little bit of a chance. And then if I go through another 2 or 3 characters without much of a chance, or without much help, then I might add a level or 2 to my characters. But on the other hand, if I do have magical items that are on characters that start dying all over the castle, then, you know, every character that I send out is going to have an arsenal of these magic items as they find these dead bodies of previous characters. So that's everything. That's everything for tonight. That's everything if you're watching this on YouTube for the playthrough, the very short playthrough. This is, there's the Ghost of Lion Castle. I'll put it over here. The Ghost of Lion Castle from, I think, 1984 by Merle M. Rasmussen. Thanks for tuning into the stream if you're watching, and thanks for tuning into the recap if you're watching this, or the playthrough if you're watching this on YouTube. Have a good night.